in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Talking about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan Blaney and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's the many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 176 of the Team Blaney podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we are here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the show. Again, fresh off that race, the first race of the year at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We'll see it again a little bit later in the Cup Series season. And we had a little bit of a deja vu weekend, I would like to call it. I think I had described it as that during our pre-race live, and I had said during the pre-race live, but let's make sure it doesn't come to fruition the whole way through, like the fall race did at Las Vegas. And I could tell you what, St. Patrick's Day, we need a little bit more luck on our side, and I'm going to have to turn to you for a little bit of your early season power of positivity. I was hoping we didn't have to go to it this soon, but man, it's been a little bit of a rough stretch for this 12 team that's shown a lot of speed and doesn't have the finishes to show for it.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the tale of two cities. You know, what are you going to do? You can look at so many things this weekend that were great and were fabulous, and then you can look at so many things this weekend that were just like, you know, at one point in the car, I heard him kind of say, man, I want to go through a weekend where we just don't have to go through all this, you know. And, you know, when those weekends do happen, they're usually spectacular, but everybody has problems. Everybody goes through something during the weekend. And I say all the teams have something during the race, during the weekend. You can even look at the guy who won the race yesterday, and I'm sure he had a bad pit stop at some point or something happened at some point. He ended up behind somebody, and, you know, it's just a matter of when they happen and what happens. And once again, how you recover from it too. So I like to find the bright side on everything that's happened. And as we go through things tonight, I think that's what I'm going to try to do, you know.
Man, and you're going to have to really do it hard, because now you brought up that radio traffic, and that was early in the race. That was after the pit stop, where we can maybe go through that when it happens, when we go through it in the recap of what may have happened. But they had the issue with the left front tire, and that was during the break. And, you know, Jonathan gets on the radio and says, you know, we're going to keep fighting here. And then Ryan's response was like, I don't want to keep fighting. I just want things to go right for once, basically. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, that just hit me hit me again. So I think by the end of this, we'll be able to kind of talk ourselves through it. Like you say, sometimes maybe it's time to go outside and touch grass. It's really early in the season, but just to kind of reset, because I said this in our live pre-race show that this stretch of races coming up, 12 cars really, really good at. So now it's just time and to execute the whole way through. You do have to have a little bit of luck on your side, but the positive thing, and this was brought up a lot in our Discord chat post-race, people were pointing out, was the speed. Mm-hmm. The speed is there.
You know, practice. You want to start with practice?
Well, we won't go. You don't. Your notes. I'm sure you had like a couple fresh pages ready in that notebook, and you only got a couple sentences in, I think.
Well, I got. You know, that's the funny part is like going into the practice. They were in the first group, and I thought, oh, you know, let's see. The first group sometimes is a little faster, you know, how clean the track is and things like that. And early on, the single lap wasn't super, but I noticed that if you go on NASCAR on your computer, you can pull up some extra data. The NASCAR app on the phone doesn't have all this data. It has some of it, or it might have it, and I don't know how to find it. Let's put it that way. But I was in a position where I was in front of a computer watching practice, and they have a thing where it lines up the lap numbers. So like on his 14th lap, whatever his time was, on his 15th lap, whatever his time was, and it lines it up with the other guys he's running out there with. Well, 14, 15 laps in, he's running 28.6 bracket, and guys around him are 4/10 slower. You know, the guys who ran a quicker lap at the beginning of their run, even. So it right away told me, my gosh, they get anywhere to over 10 laps consecutive, he's just going to be picking people off. He's 4/10 faster than everybody, and then it happens. Um, you know, yeah, he was the 29.61, 29.69 bracket, lap 14, 15, and then lap 18 happens. And man, first off, it sounds like the wind got knocked out of him. And on TV, it doesn't look like the car hit that hard. I mean, it was damaged, but those rear end into the wall hits, I think they say, are some of the worst ones. They jar you pretty good in the seat. And, I was pretty afraid right off the bat, nothing to do with the car, just for Ryan, for his safety, coming off the thing. But he drove it back over there, and they were looking at the damage and everything, and he had to take a ride right from there to the infield care and then come back. And at that point, no qualifying. There's a rule, I guess, in place where if you wreck something in practice, your car, you cannot go out to qualify even if you fix it in time. And they didn't have enough time to really fix it, but they do decide to fix it. And the reason they do decide to fix it is this car's bad fast. Overall, it was the fourth best 15 lap average. And then I also looked, and it was like overall average, like he only ran 18 laps. So I don't know how it would have shaken out if he'd have ran more, but as consistent as his laps were, it was like the second or third best in overall average, in both practices. So no wonder they wanted to fix it if they could fix it. And actually, it made for this TikTok that I made. Thanks again to Deborah, our friend from overseas there. She posted this one little video, and we were able to. I asked her if it's okay to use it, and she said sure. So I just took a little music and put it on our TikTok page, and it went crazy. I don't know how to explain like how many.
And that video itself is of Ryan under the car, actually
Yes.
helping wrench on the car, get the new pieces on. And yeah, shout out to Deborah. She's she's been following us for a while. She comes from overseas, hits a couple of races a year. And yeah, so she was in that kind of neon garage area during practice and qualifying, was able to get some photos to us and get that video. And I think people were just really impressed with the fact that the driver hung around, was helping them fix the car, didn't just take off and go enjoy his evening. Even though, like, I mean, we can talk about the situation as to what happened. The tire gets cut. I didn't get to watch this on TV, but I listened to on the radio. In the radio interview they did with Jonathan Hassler, he said he talked with the Goodyear guy. They went over the tire, and his quote was basically, "Our setup parameters didn't help." He didn't outright say that's exactly why it blew, but the fact that photos of the tire basically showed that it split at the sidewall, really is kind of a telltale sign of low pressures when you are at the start of a run, and there's a pretty big set of bumps on the track there that if you hit those early on, when you're early on in your run, could do some damage to the tire. There's also, a possibility of other factors that happen, but just keeping that setup issue in mind, something that happens during the race that triggered me to think like maybe it was really a setup thing, is when Ryan's asking him, like which tire do I really need to take care of, at moments when it really didn't seem like a time when he should be holding back.
Mhm.
But I think they were a little bit fearful, but we can talk about that when we get to that part. So.
One more thing on the video, Raymond Fox is in the foreground of that video, and that's so cool too, because we've gotten to talk to him before, and knowing that he is the guy who knows everything about the ins and outs of that car and fixing that car, and then having Ryan right over his shoulder. I thought that made that video even better. It was so cool to see the two of them working together on that back end there, putting it together.
Yeah, Raymond's awesome. I mean, he's a guy with, I was talking to you a little bit about him before we got on, that, long time in the sport, wrenching on the 28 car with Davey Allison back in the day. And he's been clutch for Ryan and the 12 team. And then in 2022, when they're fighting to stay in the playoffs at Daytona and like some other places where they're fixing toe links and things, I really think that the 12 road crew really kind of set the tone for how these crews need to operate in the next gen era. So, and we did have him on the show a couple of years ago as well, after I think that Daytona race, to explain how things went. So shout out to him. Yeah.
So we get to Sunday here, and I'm sorry. Well, McDowell gets the pole first off. I forgot the whole qualifying. Since Ryan wasn't in the qualifying, I was kind of like, well,
non-super speedway pole for McDowell. Same crew chief as last year.
Crazy good. So, and he gets the pole. What's bad, or what could have been, that you always look at the woulda, coulda, shouldas, right, in these situations, and the 22, the 2, and even the 21 qualified all up into the top 10. So you're just looking at like, boy, what kind of speed would Ryan have had for qualifying too? So. But like I said on the pre-race show Sunday before we watched, it's like we got him right where we want him, and I was feeling good about it. They start off with stages of 80, 165, 267, 9 sets of tires, a fuel run roughly of 63 to 68 laps, pit stall 29. Not having a choice, it's kind of rough, but the 16 was in front and the 9 was behind, and for the most part, most of the day, they didn't interfere with each other too much. Did a really good job of keeping space there. To the rear, of course, the 12, the 20, and the 42. So that was going to be interesting too, because you're coming up through the field, and the 20 car is going to be trying to come up through the field with you. Of course, Ryan gets on the radio thanking everybody for help fixing her up. Right off the bat, I tried to take this like almost in shorthand, because watching the in-car camera for this kind of stuff is just worth every penny.
Yes.
Not just for the in-car audio of Tim clearing guys, but, lap 1, we passed the 51 up to 32nd. 2, we're past the 35 up the, now we're chasing the 20 car. At lap 4, we're passing the 7, the 47, the 34, all the way up to 30th. Lap 5 passes the 88 and the 54 up to 27th. At lap 8 passes the 4 up to 26th. Lap 9, we passed the 41 up to 25th. Lap 13 past the 10 car up to 24th. Lap 15 passes the 77 and the 6 up to 22nd. Lap 16, we're passing the 19 up to 21st. At lap 18, passing the 17 up to 20th. The top 20. Lap 21 passes the 60 up to 19th. At lap 26, passes the 11 up to 18th. At lap 28, passing the 16 up to 17. Lap 30, we're pitting. Now, I thought this was super, because this is one of those deals where, depending on the tire wear and how much you're losing early in a run or later in a run, if you pit before some of the other guys and get out there maybe a lap or two before them, you might gain 2 seconds on them in 2 laps, and gain that kind of position as you're so a really good pit stop is key here. And this is the left front. Now, once again, we have learned that we just don't need to comment on this stuff anymore, because we don't know. I can ask questions, maybe find out, but the truth is you're going to get a report. It's a little podcast that NASCAR puts out called Stacking Pennies. The man's name is Ryan Skip Flores. For those who don't know, might be listening for the first time, I see you're smiling and laughing, but Ryan will actually tell you what happened. He'll tell you the situation. And this is on him. This is in his area. This is in his territory. And who knows? Might not be his fault. There may have been some other things that have happened. Something could make a mechanical issue. There could have been something wrong with with the way the tire was in the wheel well. You just don't know. So I will defer everybody who listens to this the next day or two to find Stacking Pennies on the NASCAR feed or on Tubi. I think they show it on Tubi now. So, their YouTube version will be the best version, because They do show video of whatever they're talking about, and that'll be good to see too. So
Yeah, it's really
we're
easy to speculate, and I will say we're not speculating by speculating, but like you said, it could have been you just in general difficult to get the wheel off, and we've seen that
Mhm.
at some tracks just based on the setup and clearances and stuff, or the way the wheel is turned when he comes into the box. It's hard to get the wheel out in general. It could just be kind of frozen on with the lug nut. The
Mhm.
gun could have jammed. I mean, TV did a terrible job of explaining or even sending a pit reporter down there to explain what
Yeah,
happened. Unfortunately, you
yeah.
think with such a car that was blasting through the field was going to be a
Mhm.
contender, they would have given an update other than it was a bad pit stop.
Yeah.
But I think maybe they got distracted by what happens in the
Yeah.
midst of the
That's the funny part is
situation.
like within 2 or 3 laps, everything goes haywire. He's It's a 31-second stop, and instead of just losing a lap, he loses 2 laps. And at lap 34, we get a caution for the 19 losing his tire completely. Um, and it was funny is the 11 was speeding on pit road during this too, so he ends up losing and ended back there with Ryan. And what was bad was um, Ryan even said on the radio because the tire was nowhere near the racing surface, it had actually rolled along the wall on the inside, and um, he said something to the effect about I thought NASCAR was going to try and do that, where they would try to not call a caution during a pit cycle if they could totally help it. And
Yeah, I mean, how many
it's
times have we seen the wheel roll out into like the ball field or the grass
yeah,
area, and they
hmm
let the cycle go through? And yeah, I
right,
saw a few people say like, why, why
yeah,
didn't do this? And this was the 19's tire, correct? I think that's the we had a
yes,
few
the
tires
19,
fall off during the race, but I think this one was the 19.
yeah, it was 19. So now we're 2 down. But we're going to take a wave around though because the cars who hadn't pitted yet will now pit. The 8 is the leader, and we'll stay out for the wave around. And 8 goes to the rear because he was speeding on pit road. We're 35th here, 1 lap down with the 11. And so the key here is to basically be the lucky dog, try to stay in front of the 11 here. Restarting at lap 41 up to 34th, and the 48 takes the lead, and they're battling the 2 car back and forth. So it was a good battle at the front with one of our Penske guys. And lap 34, we're running around. I tried to keep track of this. So we are lap down, but we're running around. We're 20th place at this point with the 2 leading. And the reason I was trying to keep track of this is because if somebody else does get lapped, how close are we in turn to closing that gap and getting to them so we can continue to be the lucky dog? Um, and at lap 50, we're behind the 22 car, who is 23rd place at that point. So 33rd, and the 51 is the car where you're like looking at because he's losing quickly to the leaders and might end up being the lucky dog soon. So hopefully try to get to him by the stage end. He does end up getting lapped. At lap 55, though, we're in 34th, 1 down, and we're running right around 20th place again. At lap 63 here, Ryan is behind 16th place and 1 down. At lap 67, the 51 does get lapped, but 4 laps later, the 71st lap, the 54 gets lapped. And I point that out because the 51 actually does come back to us. At lap 77, we get to him and we pass him. But the 54 at this point is now the lucky dog. So we are still stuck a lap down. At lap 80, the 2 wins the stage. Ryan is 33rd, 1 lap down. Ryan says something about we're the fastest car here. Basically can't show it off right now. John says we're going to keep trying. This is where he says, I just want things to go right. So the 54 is lucky dog here. The 51, the 12, and the 11 are all 1 lap down. So once again, you usually got to race at this restart to get past them, make sure you're ahead of them, and then hope for that free pass somewhere along the way. So pitting second time by. The 9 now leads here, and he was speeding on pit road. So then the 23 ends up taking the lead. We're, like I said, we're racing the 11 and the 51. We're racing the 11. Here's something interesting. The 51 takes the wave around, actually. So he's going to be on old tires, and he's hoping for something goofy to happen early and quickly before he loses his lap because he's going to be on old tires. The field will catch him a lot quicker. And this worries me because the field's going to catch him before anybody else, and will Ryan be anywhere near him to pass him and hurry up and get past him before, another caution? Restart lap 89 here. We passed the 11 right away to get the 33rd. At lap 94 here, we're behind the 24th place car, which is the 35 car. At lap 98 here, we're P32, one lap down, but we're the first guy lap down. But the 51 is almost about to be a lap. And we're running around P20 here, about 7 seconds back of the leader. So that's not much ground to make up if he does end up getting a lap. The 5 leads at this point. Lap 102 here, we're P31 because we did pass the 51. He not only went backward to get lapped, but he went, solid here. And at lap 108, we get the caution for the 88 car. Woohoo! We're back on the lead lap. In P30.
And you hate to celebrate somebody having a bad day or a bad moment, but I mentioned luck earlier, so I guess I can't say there wasn't any luck in this race, but maybe he used it all in this moment. But finally got one of those, timely cautions that this team doesn't always catch a break with. I think I mentioned to some folks while we were chatting during the race the fact that, if this was the 9 or if this was the 5, like they'd get that caution, they'd make this heroic charge back to the front, and they'd win the race. And that's just kind of how those storylines work for them sometimes. And I'm not insinuating like they cheat or anything. It's just like, it just always seems like, we have this, hashtag Revenge of the 12. It always seems like this is like a team that has to be, face adversity a lot sometimes and doesn't get things handed to them. But this was a good. This brightened a lot of spirits when that yellow came out, because I thought after they didn't get it, the 51 and the 11, the 11 was lapped down, so I kind of had a battle with him a little bit. But yeah, the 51 and 54 and those other ones getting lapped, and we weren't getting it. Finally, some light at the end of the tunnel, and this puts them on offense now too.
Yeah,
the rest
back to where we were at the beginning of the race, basically, except a little closer to the front. Lap 111 here, P29. And Jonathan says everybody here should be able to get to the end of the stage on fuel. And the reason he's saying that is in case there's no caution. They're probably all going to just take this set of tires and go here. Restart lap 113. And basically we got a caution right away for the 8 car. He lost something, I think, there. That team is cursed. Both the 8 and the 3, both those guys crews have had some issues this year and last year.
What's unfortunate is they played the 8 audio during the pace laps, and like the crew chief came on, or crew chief or spotter came on and basically said, like, he didn't say this specifically, but it was like this sentiment, like, I don't want to hear any whining or complaining today, or like, don't none of this get down in the dumps stuff. Like, we're gonna fight today and yada yada yada, and then completely their day just derails.
Yeah. So at up to P27 here with the 23 leading, and we get to go in front of the lappers now for this restart. So that's the one thing. Lucky dog, when you start on a restart with a lucky dog, you're behind anybody who's a lap down, and you have to try to pick your way through them to begin with. Well, now with that another caution, and we don't have to start behind anybody that's a lap down. And I forgot to go back and look, but when his wheel came off, they said something about the wheel nut went flying over Ryan's car. So I need to go back and see if I can find the video, if it shows it on his in-car camera, that wheel nut from the 8 car went over Ryan's car going toward the wall or not. So Johnson says we're staying out of P26 here. For the choose here, the 24 takes the bottom. Ryan from 26 position takes the bottom. And we restart lap 120 here. The 2 and the 20 get passed for 28th. At lap 123, we pass the 11 car to get to 27. Lap 124, the 48 and the 20 are both battling us, and we end up passing them, but we get to 27th doing it. Lap 126, we're 4 wide, and we pass the 6, the 11, the 38, and the 48 here to get all the way to 23rd. Spectacular move. Got the momentum off the turn, come down up underneath everybody, and was like, heck with it. We're going to take them all. While they're busy battling each other. So at lap 130 here, we pass the 2 car, get to 22nd. Lap 131, we pass the 35 and the 60 to get to 20th. At lap 133, we passed the 42 car up to 19th. 138, passing 7 to 18th. Of 139, we passed the 9 to get to 17th. 143, we passed the 47 to get to 16th. At 145, passing the 43 and the 34 to get to 14th. And the next lap or two, he's kind of battling with the 34 and the 47. And we go ahead and we're pitting. And it's 4 tires here and a 9.58 stop. I'm sorry, because we had a caution here. The 34 and the 34 hit the 47. I'm sorry, that's what I had in my notes. So we get that caution. Pitting for 4 tires, a 9.58 stop. In 14th, off 14th. So back on track here. Doing pretty good. And we get to the one leading here, and Ryan's up to 16th. I guess there's somebody took 2 tires here. Let's see, the 1, the 11, and the 43. So the pit stop was great. But once again, we get some of these people doing these little variances on strategy. And the 2 tire thing was interesting because these 3 guys, I don't think it washes out for all 3 of them. One of them may have held some position, I think the 1 car, but the other guys kind of end up just going backwards. It really didn't help them much. We're going to restart at lap 153 here, and we get right up to P13 on this restart at lap 154, passing the 16, and we're up to 11th. At lap 155, we passed the 4 to get to 10th. At 156, we passed the 11 to get to 9th, one of the 2 tire guys. At 157, we passed the 43 and the 21 to get to 7th. There's one of the other 2 tire guys. The 24 is a leader at this point. At lap 162, we passed the 99 to get to 6th. The next lap, the 99 kind of gets us back here, but by lap 165, we pass him again, get to 6th. The 5 wins the stage, Ryan P6. So everything that happened, at this point, it's all water on the bridge, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually think, after what happened at the beginning and how far behind they were and waiting to try to get that lap back and not getting it right away. I think I even said in our chat, like, it's all about the finish now. Like, we aren't going to get stage points. It doesn't matter. Proved us wrong by finally getting that lap back and then immediately making that massive charge through the field again for the second time. I can't tell you how many times in this race, if you may have mentioned him, the 35 car. It seems like he passed that 35 Sunny D car like 40 times. It felt like it during this race. And there was even a point when they go off strategy a little bit and they're back out in front of him again. And I thought we had shucked him for the day, but that was not the case. So we talk about like roller coaster rides, and we did this with a race a couple weeks ago, unfortunately. And this is super, super high moment for sure of the day. Probably, one of the highest moments of the day overall as far as the run went. Because again, even with the damage they had in practice, they put this car back together, got them on the lead lap, and were able to prove that they could drive up to the front. And now here's an opportunity to set up for a good run to the finish.
Yeah, we get 4 tires and fuel here. I've got it at a 9.38. Right on schedule here, in 6th, out 6th. So you're going to start right near the front now. He said the car took off really decent the last time, so can't help but be optimistic. And the 99 took 2 tires here, and he's another one though. The 99 and the 1, whatever their setups were for Trackhouse, their 2 tire strategies actually worked for them. They didn't lose a lot of ground, and then when they got on equal equipment later on, they were in better shape.
I think they were able to do it setup wise, but I also think those 2 guys are extremely aggressive when it comes to being passed. They don't give up spots. And you saw that previously here when Ryan battled him right at the end of that stage, and they swapped the position back and forth until Ryan eventually prevailed. So I think if the guys that are a lot better at playing defense, when they take 2 tires like that, if they can wait a few laps for things to equalize, they have much better success. So they figured it out. I always get scared when we do. If we didn't, or the 12 didn't do it this race, but in some other races, anytime they take 2 of them, you just never know what's going to happen.
Okay, I'm going to get on my soapbox here because the 71 and the 3 stayed out.
That was
13 lap old tires, and they stayed out. What were you going to accomplish Okay, the only thing that I can say for it is if there is some sort of, I don't know what, because even if there's a quick caution, you're going to pit and other guys are going to stay out. So you're going to lose that position anyway. If it stays green, you're just going to fall back like a rock. And the only thing you're really going to be is or what they call that, a rolling roadblock,
Or
you know,
moving
where,
chicane.
yeah, moving chicane, right? So, I mean, you're just going to be in the way and you could cause the accident to be you, basically. So I
The only
just don't
thing
think,
I could see is if their thought process was maybe they fall back from first and second to like 15th to 20th, and a caution comes out in like 12 laps, and then they have an extra set of stickers on the day. That's like the only thing I could see. Big
everybody still
gamble.
had, that's the thing is the tire thing was going to equal out. Everybody in the next pit stop, everybody's going to stop, including you. But between here and there, you're going to fall backward. You're going to fall backward. You are not one of the faster cars to begin with. If you were, let's say, Ryan, you might hold a position in the top 10 as things equal out. But these guys aren't going to hold a position in the top 10 as things equal out. 10
No,
laps in, 10 laps into a run, they're going to be back in 20th place. It's
and
just
I'm
where
not
they
saying
were.
it's a good idea. I'm saying
Yeah.
they were playing the super long game. They were playing the game if there was a caution beyond the last caution we got in this race. This was, I think they were like, our day sucks. we have to throw a Hail
this
Mary here.
this is a
And
this is
that's where they
a
were.
this is where a lot of people were playing chess and they brought their checkers with them. So, so 71 takes the bottom, Ryan on the bottom. We restart lap 173. Ryan sorts out to eighth. By lap 175, he passes the 4 up to seventh. Lap 178 passes the 71, get the sixth. At lap 184 passes, I got the 23 here for fifth. At lap 187, we've got a caution for the 51. Ryan's talking about being tight on exit a little bit, needs a little more fire off. They pit here. It's a 9.32. In fifth here, they come off seventh, but I think there were a couple more people with two tire stops here, and they're not in the window yet. At this point, he says on the radio, one set of stickers, and I believe they still discussed this point too. So there were some two tire stops there, including the one car and the two car.
I
Those
do
are the guys that.
want to point out that they had that mishap on the first stop of the day.
Mhm.
Every pit stop after that,
Yeah.
as far as guys being on their strategy, I
Mhm.
don't think they ever really lost a position, maybe one, but on
So
their strategy. Other guys, when they took two or stayed out and stuff, yeah, they got them on pit road, but these pit stops were all like sub 10 seconds. Like they're getting into that
yeah,
range where they could do that consistently.
I didn't go back and look at the time for the one that happened after they got the lucky dog, because you get the lucky dog, you have nothing to lose there. Ryan
Oh,
actually,
yeah, they weren't
Ryan
worried about
stalled.
that.
Well, Ryan stalled the car on
Yeah,
that
that's
pit
right.
stop actually. So the pit stop itself looked great, but Ryan stalled the car and had to get pushed out of there. So for the choose code here, the one is the leader taking the bottom, Ryan taking the top here. Restart lap 194, and this is the restart. This is where 2 out, 1 in, and the radio said it. He said it two different times coming down the backstretch. The 20 was ahead of him on that left hand side. So the in-car camera, and I made a TikTok of this too, where I stacked two different in-car cameras. So if you want to go to that, it's not only on TikTok, but I put it on our Facebook and Instagrams also. So you can see it there, like stories or whatever. But what ends up happening is that 20 on the outside is in front of us, and to some extent, if you watch it, it looks like he almost like fakes like he's coming up. Like I said, Tim said 2 out, 1 in. In a 4 wide situation, that's the only way that you can spot. You've got to tell him 2 to your outside, 1 guy to your inside. Ryan seeing that car down below, if he thinks that there's not enough room because somebody else is there, let's say he thinks there might be 2 cars down there, not just one. He might have thought about partially why he was thinking about coming up, and that's why his post race interviews talked about he'd have to go back and look at it because But what also did happen to, like I said, a little bit is it almost looked like the 20 was thinking about squeezing him too. and trying to make him back off. But in the interim, Ryan does cross right over where the 4 car was going. And, everybody can blame the 4 and the 23 for being over there on that right-hand side, but they were next to the wall and the guy right next to the guy next to the wall. So where were they going to go? Um, and as far as like positioning, he wasn't clear of them. So when he made his move, he wasn't clear, and it just ends up making making the rest of the day. We watched the rest of the race. I don't take any notes after that from that point forward, but having him get out of the post, they drove it back to the garage. They drove it to the pit road. They looked at it on pit road for a little bit, and then they drove it to the garage. He did have to go to the infield care center, but he came out, and this is the best part about the guy. He come out, he did the interviews, talked to the people, did not give any kind of like real attitude to anybody, and you could be really mad. You could be ticked off, but I always say about like taking my lead from him when he talks about these things, and that's why, because he's got a good attitude. He said he has to look at it. That, okay, they tried to show him the video. He says, yeah, it looks like it might be my fault. He says that. He doesn't say, blame this guy, or why'd the 20 do that, or why'd the 4 do this, or why was the 23 over there. He didn't do any of that. And he took, as much as you take credit, sometimes you take blame. And, I give him all the credit in the world for doing that. He's the head of the team. He's the face that's going to be on TV, and he does a good job of being accountable. So, does it end the way we hoped the day would end? Definitely not. Is what they did during the weekend to recover from everything look spectacular? Yes. And that's the part I always try to take from it. Anytime they've gotten punched in the gut or punched in the face, right? What have they done? Somebody said, Tyson once said about, everybody's got a game plan, right? Till they get punched in the face. And these guys have shown that they can take a punch, get back up, and do something about it. And the thing is, this weekend here, they had to do it multiple times. But every time that something happened, they did. And they, they get stage points at the end of the second stage. And really, truthfully, if what happens in the pit stop in the first stage doesn't happen, they're probably getting stage points both stages, and and racing to the end of this race for who knows what. So,
yeah, I mean, the only thing a couple things I want to say about the incident as well is this is it's not a classic racing deal accident, because it was like a 4-wide restart. It was all take, no give, basically, from all 4 guys that were there. You could, like I was telling you, like lots of little things happened in this. The 20 made the decision to go low in the first place on that restart and take everybody 4 wide, essentially. The 4, like all day long, he raced around Ryan a lot. The 4 was constantly putting his nose in places that were putting people in bad positions. He did it again, but again, he held his line. The 23 basically held his line until he was into the wall and bounced off. So it's like, if the 23 doesn't bounce off the wall and hit the 4 right as Ryan's moving up, this doesn't happen. So as I'm like going through all these things and analyzing the video, you just realize that it's an accident. And that's okay. And it's okay if it was Ryan's fault. I think there's different people that share blame in this incident as well, and that brings you right back again to just, it was an accident, and that's okay. You don't have to, on our posts, other people's posts, like you just see people like just defending Ryan to the ends of the earth. Like some of it's because they don't like the driver of the 23 car, and no matter what happens, he's going to be at fault. Some don't like Bell pushing the limit there, and also because he's won 3 races in a row, so people have already turned on him. And then the 4 car, Noah, has already has his own reputation for being kind of a rough racer. So all I will say, it is okay if it was Ryan's fault. It was an accident. It's racing. This is going to happen. I did have a second thing that I was going to say, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was just kind of that altogether. Yes, yeah, it was that. So it was basically, it's okay if it's Ryan's fault, and you don't have to like go crazy just trying to defend what happened. It's fine. It's unfortunate what happened, but they live to race another day.
I I said, I think before we start recording, I can be considered one of the biggest homers that there is out there, right? I mean, here we are doing this and talking about it every week and analyzing everything we can. But within 2 replays of watching it, I thought that might be on him. Just watching this replay, watching that replay, and then once again, when he does his interview, he more or less says, "I may have, made a mistake, may have made something happen that, I couldn't come back from." So throwing blame is kind of fun to watch everybody do that, because I understand they're all defending, which is great because that's passion. That's, they care about their guy. So, just do it playfully if you can, don't do it with any kind of real angst and anger. I mean, we made fun of Carson a couple weeks ago, but we don't hate the guy really. We just are very wary of him on the track.
So that's they started 36, they finished 35th on the day. They did get the stage points in the second stage. But that's really all they have to show for the day at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
I don't have the notes, but the 21 car does a spectacular job. Let's not forget what Josh Berry does here to win this race, because he makes that pass. He makes that pass on the 99 and then holds him off. He just does a spectacular job of running the line he needs to run, keeping the 99 at bay, and it's pretty good to watch down the stretch. Somebody pointed out it's the first Wood Brothers win on a 1.5 miles since I think 93. I can't remember the driver now, but I think the stat was something like that, where it's the first win they've had on a 1.5 miles in that long. The last 4 or 5 guys who've won for the Wood Brothers have won their first race of their career. So we got all kind of cool storylines out of it, and the way that he came up and Dale Jr. Helped him up into the series is a hell of a story too. So I'm sure this week he'll do some media and stuff like that. But the Wood Brothers being in charge of this choice for picking a driver really did a good job.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stats that came out of that were fun. One of the other ones, it was the first time the Wood Brothers had won back-to-back races since the 1986-1987 seasons. There was only 200 something days between their Daytona win and this win. Their previous days between the 2 wins was over 4,000 days. So that's kind of insane, because that was, from Ryan's win all the way to Harrison Burton winning that race last year. So congratulations to them. I saw a cool tweet that somebody had reposted from Dale Jr. that was made years ago that said Josh Berry is a cup champion just waiting for a cup owner to believe in him or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that was that one was kind of cool. Someone in our live chat here pointed out the fact that every winner of a race this year so far's last name starts with a B.
Yeah.
So speaking of Carson Hocevar, I saw him tweet something funny today where he said, "Actually, I haven't been telling the truth. My last name actually starts with a silent B," or something, just to try to jump in on that. But that does bring, Blaney, Busher, some of those other guys out there. Maybe they're going to be next up. And honestly, that Homestead would be a fantastic place for Ryan to pick up a win, because we do need to right the ship a little bit here. I mentioned the fact that they were able to get stage points in the second stage, and that really saved the day. Kind of gave it a tiny bit of a bright spot. Point standings, Ryan early on, first couple races of the season, led the Cup Series point standings, has slipped as they've had little incidents in the last few races. This weekend, he did slip 3 positions now to the 7th position overall, 64 points back to the leader. Last week, he was in 4th, I think, only 29 points back. So they did lose 30-plus points in this weekend, so that wasn't great. But that does show you, they lost that many points. They could have gained that many points in this race as well. So they can, turn things around rather quickly if they have a couple solid finishes back to back. So the Cup Series point standings as we record: first, William Byron is 207 points. He is 29 points to the good over Christopher Bell in second. Still crazy to me that Bell has won 3 races and still doesn't lead the standings. Third, Tyler Reddick. Fourth, Chase Elliott. Fifth, Alex Bowman. Sixth, Kyle Larson. So you have all of the Hendrick Motorsports drivers in the top 6 so far. So they are being dangerously consistent this year, with Byron the only one coming out on the winning end so far. Again, Ryan is in 7th, 64 points back. Logano, the teammate, is in 8th. Chris Buescher is in 9th, and Ross Chastain is in 10th. Ryan still leads the Ford Brigade in the top 10, but there are 3 Fords with Ryan, Joey, and Chris Buescher. Josh Berry, the winner, 13th position overall, 88 points back of the lead in the 2-car, with his pretty decent day at times, climbed 11 spots in the standings up to 21st now. So they're kind of starting to get things rolling again. The 2 showed a lot of speed this year, just also doesn't necessarily have the finishes to show for it. So why don't we switch over now to the last few things we have to clean up from the weekend at Las Vegas, and that has to do with the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. We have some exciting updates for that. I had an okay weekend in fantasy racing. Not as good as last week. I did have a little bit of an issue with my garage selection because I made a swap during the race that ended up not benefiting me too well, but it wasn't disastrous like they can be sometimes. So take a look at my who ended up being in my starting lineup. Joey Logano got me 26 points. Kyle Larson got me 44. Reddick just 16. Bell 26. Man, Reddick had a horrible day. They also had a pit issue, and then I think they ended up on by the end of the race on like scuffed tires on the last run. So no bueno for them. Ross Chastain was also in my starting lineup, got me 40 points. Bowman is who I ended up with in the garage and got me 39. So Bowman had an issue early in the race as well with he had a super bad vibration. I think he described it as like the worst vibration he's ever felt in the car. So they brought it back down pit road. They said they didn't find any loose wheels, so not really sure what it was. But when that happened, Joey was running pretty well. So I swapped them. Swapped Joey out of the garage, put Bowman in the garage. By the end of the day, though, Bowman ended up ranking 6th overall in points earned, and Logano was 11th. So because of that swing, it dropped me down the leaderboard a little bit. I also had some issues here in the featured matchups that I actually thought were going to be worse, but they cycled around by the end of the race to think I got 2 out of the 4. I had Reddick over Briscoe. That was wrong. I had Bell over Logano. That was right. I had Busch over Chastain. That was horribly wrong. And I had Bowman over Gregson, and that was right. So, yeah, 2 out of the 4 there. 45th overall on the weekend at Las Vegas in the Fantasy League, and 172 points earned. How about you?
I had an issue with garage things too, because I had Byron, Bell, Larson, Elliott, and Logano starting, and when Ryan made his way back up and was about to get stage points, I made the swap because at that point Bell had only 1 stage point in the first stage, and he wasn't going to get any stage points in the second stage. So I looked at that automatically, and I'm like, well, that's going to be a 4 or 5 point difference right off the bat. So, and if they finish anywhere near each other, Ryan will have more points on the day. So I made that move.
Can I interrupt our fantasy thing because I had a grind my gears moment, to steal a phrase from that other NASCAR podcast.
Yeah.
And it has to do with this Christopher Bell situation and why Bell was behind. Bell was another one of the drivers that had a loose wheel during this race.
Yes.
They caught it on pit road, and the crew chief doesn't say specifically to go to a teammate's box, but the crew chief says pull in a box and stop. So Bell mentioned that just out of the corner of his eye, he saw the 19 pit box, pulled into there. The 19 crew comes over, jacks the car up, tightens the wheel. They go on with their day. They do get penalized for pitting outside of the box. And I applaud the crew chief's quick thinking. I think this has actually happened before, but to maybe a team that wasn't as high, in prominence right now. It's great that if you have all these teammates like Ryan would have this option. I still and I had it was not like a negative back and forth with Kelly Crandall, who's a great NASCAR beat reporter, where she was just explaining to people that they were penalized, they got pitting outside the box. This, isn't it's an illegal move, but not like illegal, like they're going to get fined or anything, and that
Mhm.
NASCAR was okay with it because it's for safety. And I was just shocked because I in this back and forth, I had just said, I'm like, that's great that they had this option. But what about a car like the 47 that has no teammates?
Mhm.
What are they supposed to do, for safety? Like
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have this option to drive around. And Kelly came back and said, they never told him to pull into a teammate's box. He could have pulled in any box and had them come over the wall and fix the car. And I had come back and said, that's nice.
Yeah.
And that's a great thought. But and I didn't I thought Hendrick out of my mind, but I just
Yeah.
said, what if he had pulled into a Chevy box?
Yeah.
Are those guys going to jump over the wall and tighten this wheel for him?
No, they'd have been
And
sitting there. They'd have been sitting there eating their ice cream cones, waving at him. Like,
which yeah, like Days of Thunder moment. Which I agree. That's what I think would happen, but I was shocked by the amount of people on social media, because I also made a similar comment on like a Facebook thread too on one of the NASCAR posts, just bringing this up for discussion.
mhm.
And the people were saying like, and maybe we need to ask, somebody. Maybe we need to ask Mule or somebody else, like over on the, or even Skip, like on the on the pit crew.
Mhm.
They're like, oh no, the garage is really tight knit. Somebody, you would be surprised. They would help them. Oh yeah, no, no way a team would let those guys go. They would hop over and tighten the wheel for them. Like no questions asked. I'm like, I don't know if maybe it was just my mind. I was like, I don't know. This is a competition. This is a guy that just won 3 races. Are you gonna? Maybe you do it slowly. Maybe you take your time. You get one of like the ones you would use on their rental car out in the parking lot. That's what you jack the car up with, and
I hope.
and you take your
I hope
time.
that.
But I just didn't see that happening. I didn't think that would happen.
I'm pretty sure that Skip's going to delve into it because what I find most interesting is the communication. Because how many stalls away his pit box actually is, the 20's
Yeah,
pit box is. How do they tell the 19's pit box what to do? Are they texting? Is there a radio that they can talk to each other on? Because sure, anybody can pull up into my pit box, but do I know what to do? Do I know which tire is loose,
that's a
or
good point.
or needs jacked up to do it, or whatever? I don't, unless somebody's telling me. So I'm really curious to find out if the 20, like, they didn't tell them whose pit box to pull into, but once they realized it was the 19, how quick did they say, hey, his left front, his right front, whatever it is? Because that's the part that I find really strange is like, how do you communicate from you're inside the car. What are you doing? Hey, come do this tire or that tire. I mean, they can't yell out there to hear what to do. So that was amazing too, that they knew what to do or somebody told them what to do. Where did
Yeah.
that communication come from?
Super heads up call. My whole point was just like I just felt my thoughts immediately went to like, and there's not a lot of them, but like single car teams, and like, is this fair to the
Yeah.
47 or the 51 or somebody else out there that doesn't have a teammate's box to pull into? But everyone seems to think that the people will be a lot nicer than I thought they would be, and they would just tighten the wheels for him. But hey, super heads up call by the crew chief and the driver. Luckily, seeing the 19 box, and I get it. It is a safety thing. It's much better for it to be caught on pit road, but it really benefited him because he could have just kept going. He would have lost the wheel on the track, most likely. There would have been suspensions involved. So I just keep going back to the 47 is the only one that comes to mind, but
Mhm.
like, they don't have that option. Probably wouldn't have even thought of that option. So I don't know that they need a rule change, but that's just how I feel. And anyway, back to our regularly scheduled fantasy thing, but it just popped in my mind that I did want
Yeah,
to air some
yeah,
grievances over
that's good.
what happened there.
I'm glad you thought about that. So yeah, so I make that swap out before the end of the stage, too, and so I've got Ryan in the lineup, which totally ends up messing up a points day for me because it ends up being about a 19-point swing of what I could have had. I had Reddick over Briscoe, which was wrong. I had Bell over Logano, and that was wrong. But then I got Chastain over Bush, and I got Bowman over Gregson. Um, there's one more lineup I'm going to read, but we'll do it after we get to the top 10 for the day.
Where did you end up overall on?
38.
Not too bad.
I was 38. Yeah, 174 points.
All right. So again, I was 45th overall, 172 points. 2 points just separating us in the lineup for the week. But let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned on the weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And it starts off with a tie for ninth between Queen of the Caniacs and Zero Schlitz Given, 211 points. Eighth was Al 12 Fan 215. Sixth, we have a tie between Bulldog 0277 and Montana 12 Fan 216 points. Three-way tie for third. Brock H, Turn Over Nose, and Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 221 points.
Clyde's back, baby.
Yep. Second is No Hesitation, 224 points. And leading the way this week with a pretty big margin compared to what we've seen in the last few weeks, C. Mez, fill-in co-host Kate Mez, your wife, wins the weekend.
Yes. So
Lady NASCAR Fantasy Live League, 232 points. So a pretty big win this weekend. So I am interested in hear this lineup because Kate had a pretty good win.
Check out this lineup. Okay. Bowman, who was overall sixth best in points for the day. Cindric, who was the fourth best point getter on the day. Byron, who was the third best point getter on the day. Kyle Larson, who was the second best point getter on the day. And Josh Berry, in her lineup, was the first best point getter on the day. And what's funny is that she had Reddick over Briscoe, so she got that wrong. She had Bell over Logano. She had Kyle Busch over Chastain. She got that wrong. And she got Bowman over Gregson. She could have had another 20 points on top of what she ended up scoring if the matchups had come out right.
That's impressive. So let's take a look at where things stand in the overall standings. All the races combined together so far. I am in the 51st position. Team Blaney host Adam, 811 points earned. You are in the 11th position, just outside the top 10, 904 points on the year. In 10th, Blaney Kicks Beat, 906 points. 9th is Blaney's Daisy, 913. 8th is Hawkeyes, 07914. In 6th, we have a tie between Bulldog 0277 and our friend Jordan Daniels, 918 points. 5th is Montana 12 Fan, 939. 4th is Blaniacal, 947. Tight race here to 3rd. Go 12 Go, 948. 2nd is Vans 12, 951. And just 2 points is the difference here to the first position with Alyssa C leading the way, 953 points to lead in first, the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And I'm just trying to scroll through to see where Kate is at in the overall standings. 72nd. But she is behind because of some login issues at the beginning of the season. Is that right?
First race of the season, she wasn't able to get in. So actually, she's doing really, really well when you think about it, making up ground.
So congratulations to Kate. Congratulations to Alyssa C, who's leading the way in the standings. And here's to us having some better luck, or at least me. You're doing okay. Have some better luck this weekend as the NASCAR Cup Series heads back to South Florida. Feels like we were just there because we were just there, as Homestead Miami Speedway has moved up into the beginning of the season here. It has been in the playoffs for the last couple of years. It did take this date a few years ago. Remember it being a little chilly down here and not that well attended. So I'm hoping this is just a stopgap year and it finds its way back into the playoffs, finds its way back into the championship race, but that has yet to be seen. But the weekend at Homestead actually kicks off on Friday night, March 21st. You can catch the Baptist Health 200 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch that on Fox, listen to it on Sirius XM, and also any of the, I think it's now called the NASCAR radio network that covers the truck series on the radio. You can listen to that on any of those local affiliates. Then Saturday, March 22nd, we have practice for the NASCAR Cup Series, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time. That is going to be on the Prime streaming network. 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time is when qualifying is, also on Prime, followed at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for the Hard Rock Bet 300 at Homestead Miami Speedway for the NASCAR Xfinity Series on the CW and also on MRN Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at Homestead Miami Speedway. You can watch that on FS1. You can listen to it on MRN Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, or you can watch the in-car cameras on Max. Ryan Blaney, Homestead Miami Speedway. Little bit of a love-hate relationship with this track. Much better in the next-gen car. Has had some incidents over the years where he's finished 26th, 29th, 29th, 17th, 17th, 17th. Also has some other decent finishes throughout his career there. 11th, 3rd, 2nd, 2nd. 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s. All 3 of those top 10s were also top 5s. Average start 11.5, average finish of 15.3, no DNFs, 99.7% laps completed, has led 170 laps there, led a significant amount of laps in 2020, and then has led both of these last 2 races there at Homestead, 53 laps in 2023 as championship season, and 47 laps in the fall race this past year. Which if he would have just led 48 laps, he would have locked himself into the championship for 1 week earlier and not have to do it at Martinsville and not break my heart. But here we are. But the good news is in the next gen car, last few races at Homestead Miami Speedway, this 12 team has been super fast. Now, again, people can say that's, it happened in the fall. That's when Penske is really focused on things. I'm hoping not a lot has changed over the offseason when it comes to the setup on this car, and they can unload fast again this weekend and contend for a win here because, man, if they got a win this weekend, everything that's happened the last few weeks would just be out of my mind, out of sight, out of mind, focused on what they can do to pick up more wins throughout the rest of the year, more playoff points, and enter the playoffs in a good spot.
I want it to be the 45 car and a duel right at the end, and then avenge it. Revenge of the 12. Revenge of the 12 weekend coming up.
That would probably be about the best thing to happen, right? Like especially if what I want to see. So I don't want to wish anybody to wreck, but I'm picturing Dave Blaney's Charlotte Busch Series win. Where the 12 and the 45 come off a turn 4 side by side, and the 45 spins without hitting anything, and Ryan wins the race. How about that?
All right. As long as we can get Kyle Petty to call it.
Oh goodness. Well, there's a lot of things with Kyle Petty calling that race. That would be interesting. Let's take a look at the top 10 finishers of this race in the fall. Because you'll see some guys that maybe you thought were surprises, but this year might just be showing that there's some consistency here. Ryan Preece finished 10th. Carson Hocevar finished 9th. AJ Allmendinger finished 8th. All 3 of those guys had great races this past week at Las Vegas. Allmendinger finished in the top 10. He's the only one that really had, and Preece finished, top 5. Hocevar had top 10 speed, but had an incident on pit road. So, those guys could unload fast again here this weekend. Bowman was 7th, Byron 6th, Elliott 5th, Bell 4th, Hamlin 3rd, Blaney and Reddick. So when we're talking about the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League and guys that you're looking to maybe put in your lineup, I know you will say, I want to see what happens in practice and qualifying, but Hamlin's been fast there pretty much every time. Reddick, super fast there, runs the wall. Larson runs the wall as well. Elliott, Bell, everybody that finished up front here, the only ones I'd be a little hesitant would be like the Allmendingers and the Preeces and the Hocevar. Preece has run up front a lot this year. Some of it has been with interesting strategies, but this race this past week at Las Vegas, though, the strategies got him up there and he stayed up there. So is there any locks for you? And then maybe anybody like a Preece or like a Hocevar or an Allmendinger or somebody else. Josh Berry finished 11th in this race in the fall in the 4-car. So anybody you maybe out of left field you'd want to put in your lineup, or anybody that you think is automatically going to be in your lineup even before qualifying?
Left field is hard because you got to look at all the Hendrick cars. You have to look at the 5-car for sure because of the way he runs the wall. I mean, this is the one track where definitely in 3 and 4, the guy who can run the high line once the high line is come in is the guy, and the 45 is the same way. So those two, and then Ryan actually is really good at running the wall also. So there's 3 of them already. I'm already looked at. Not unless something really drastically weird happens to those cars with their practice, where something's not right and they're way off and they have to take half the race to figure it out. Those are definitely 3 of them. Bubba Wallace, has showed a lot of speed last weekend, and I could see it another 1.5 miles for him. I mean, Kansas seems to be his specialty. That 1.5 miles seems to be his best one. But he's really dialed in at 1.5 miles for speed with that group. So, it's interesting you bring up Priest because of the Fords. He is pretty much right now. Buscher's not showing up real well over there. But now that Josh Berry has ripped the lid off of things, the Penske cars, all 4 of them, I say 4, I'm sorry, 3 of them and Josh need to basically just every week from now on be in the top 10. Because Josh has definitely showed what he could do with the equipment when he got the equipment. It's not all disheveled like it was over at SHR for him. So, and Austin has definitely been running up in the front. He led the most laps, I think, in a race he's ever led this past weekend. So, and usually Ryan's the best of the Penske. So this is it. This is the weekend that all 4 Penskes are top 10 guys.
So again, if you want to tune in specifically for the Cup Series, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time, we have practice at Homestead on Prime, followed at 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time, we have qualifying. And then on Sunday, the Straight Talk Wireless 400 from Homestead Miami Speedway, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1, MRN, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, and in-car camera streaming on Max. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live and also throughout the week in the audio format. During the week and on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search for Team Blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine, the Alzheimer's Association, and much more. Look out this week. We've mentioned it before with a special interview with Leah Reeves from the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, catching us up on everything that's happening with them and going forward in 2025. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. For my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brisbane. Check out the TikTok.